So the Sony A6700 versus the Sony A7C Mark II. This is a very interesting comparison because when you look at these solely from a video perspective, yes, there will be people that care about the photo side of things, especially because both of these cameras are hybrid cameras and they have pretty good, actually really good video features for what you're trying to do. Now, you probably have already been watching a ton of videos. You probably watched all the videos that came out on the Sony A6700 and the A7C Mark II. So I'm not going to belabor the point when it comes to certain specs. You can see that on the spec sheets, on the websites, and the hashtag and all the things. So let's just get to the determining factors and why you would choose one or the other specifically for video and like YouTube content creation, especially if you're a content creating entrepreneur. This one is going to be very interesting. So right off the rip, a lot of people just looking at an APS-C sensor in the A6700 and the full frame sensor in the A7C Mark II. This is where you start to look at like the low light comparisons because neither of these sensors are bad. Now, here's where this gets interesting. When you look at the low light comparisons between the two, you can get by without any of the lenses because Sony makes exceptional lenses. Then you have third parties that are making really good quality glass that have the lower apertures that will allow more light to the sensor. So you're not looking at a bad comparison either way. But where this does kind of touch into this is the fact that you have, I would consider, not great rolling shutter performance on the A7C II and pretty good rolling shutter performance on the A6700, to the point I would say the A6700 is much better. Now, the A7C Mark II has 7 stops of in-body image stabilization, and the A6700 has 5 stops of in-body image stabilization. Now, would you say that the A7C II in that case is better? For some people, especially if you do care about the more photo side of things, the answer would be yes, because I think that's where that's more beneficial. Because in 4K video, you have the rolling shutter and you're having the not necessarily great IBIS performance. You're going to see it look worse than probably what it would be. But honestly, I'm telling you what it would be in 1080p versus in 4K. It's the same ththing like when I tried the A7 IV, and the A7C II is just a baby A7 IV. And the A6700 is a little bit of an upgrade to the FX30 in some respects, but it actually is kind of standing on its own, but pretty firmly. So when it comes to 4K, of course, the big conversation right now is 4K 60 crop on the full frame camera that takes you to APS-C versus the A6700, which doesn't have a crop. And for a lot of people, that is more important and it's better simply because it's not a limitation. It's just doing its thing. Whereas on the A7C Mark II, we're still seeing that limitation, albeit whether it's a type of faux limitation or if it's because it's truly a limitation of the sensor. I think I was really hoping that either that was removed and dealt with or put a different sensor so that you're not having to deal with the 4K 60 crop on the A7C II. Not that the A7 IV was ever a bad camera, but I just think that's surprising to like I talked about in the video where I talked about the A7C II versus the ZVE1. We're so spoiled now at this point, and you're spoiled for options. We're used to having fantastic releases or something that gives you a wow factor, and still seeing that 4K 60 crop isn't producing that wow factor like a lot of people would have hoped. It's not that neither of these are a bad camera. Any of the cameras you pick up today would be awesome, but it's a matter that we're not getting that little bit of a wow factor that we was hoping for.
Wow.
So in real life use case, using that 4K 60 without a crop like on the ZVE1 is more beneficial because when you're in the mindset of shooting, it doesn't mean you're using it all the time, but when you are using it, you don't have to reframe because of the minimum focusing distance of the lens you're using, and that varies from lens to lens, and then have to reframe because your camera cropped in some more. So on the A6700, whatever you're shooting in at 4K 24 or 4K 30, you're good when you switch over into 4K 60, and you have 4K 120 in the camera as well. The A7C Mark II doesn't have that. So I think for a lot of reasons, just like right off the rip comparison for that, the A6700 easily wins that match. And it's simply based on the camera can do all of what it's capable of doing for the sensor without many limitations, whereas the A7C II is still paying for the sins of the father of the A7 IV. So you take all this into consideration and you look at the cost of lenses being a factor as well. I could definitely say that the A6700 is much better price-wise for lenses than full frame, but you can find still great quality glass that is full frame, that's more budget friendly and comparative to APS-C. But here's the rub. APS-C has more native lenses that you don't have to worry about, oh, I gotta go over here and look around. Like, you have more creator friendly lenses, it feels like, from focal length to, you know, low aperture zooms that are small and compact, and it's just built for it. Like, I would have loved to have seen something like that 11 f1.8, the 15 f1.4, and the 10 to 20 power zoom f4 that was all APS-C. I would love to see something that's still small like that, but for full frame, to give you that ultra wide aspect ratio, so you don't have to deal with any crop ins. So the A6700 takes the cake again, just simply based on better native lens options that are budget friendly but great quality glass. And you can always get the full frame stuff and put it on either one. Like, the E-mount is the one mount system. Doesn't matter what lens it's for, initially made for, it can work on both. But I do think APS-C takes the cake for this particular use, just because what's the point of 4K 60 to go into APS-C mode if that's all that you have available and you have to get APS-C lenses anyway? You might as well just have an APS-C camera, because I think this is more down to a specific person's use case. For somebody like me, that 90% of what I'm doing is in 4K 24p, and it's only that extra 10% that I want access to the unlimited of 4K 60 and 120, I would have that in the A6700, and I would have to deal with concessions in the A7C Mark II. So you couple that with lenses, I don't need to rethink about how to reframe or anything like that. I don't have to worry about really any kind of crop. I do have access to 4K 120. The A6700 has a lot going for it because you have a full frame camera, on the other hand, with the A7C II, but not quite of a full frame camera. Now, everything else being the same, like having micro HDMI port, having the nice Z battery, having a nice grip, having the dials on the front, what difference really is there other than to say one is full frame? I don't think the A7C Mark II really can take all of that cake of being full frame, because you're not seeing all of the benefits of it being full frame. And it does not by any means make this a bad camera. I think a lot of people that travel and they want their A7 IV or even like the A7CR, they want just those same specs, but they want that to be on the go. Easy choice. Like, it's a yes all day long. And I think this will be a great camera. But I think when you compare the two, if you're not averse to going to APS-C and knowing that you're going to stay with APS-C, the A6700 is dope. And I think in a lot of ways, a much better offering than the A7C II. But if you're not touching the 4K 60, 4K 24 is all you need. You do care about it being full frame, and you have everything else that you would need in the camera body, you're good to go. So if I had to choose between the two, okay, so here's the dilemma. Same reasons of why I chose the Sony ZV-E1, it would probably still be the same reasons I might choose the A7C II, simply because I know moving forward, I would want to continue adding in more full frame cameras versus more APS-C cameras. Not that you can't mix and match, but for me personally, and it's just really down to preference of what kind of creator that you are and how you like to create. I know when I'm picking up a camera and I'm going from one to the other, I want the interface to be the same. I want the feature sets to more or less be the same. I don't want to be limited from one camera to the other. And if I got two of the same cameras, I still wouldn't have like everything that I would want in the A7C Mark II, but because it is full frame would make me want to get it. But I think in this case, I would take the price difference savings, get the A6700, still have all of the Bee's Knees Hall of Fame feature sets in that camera, and can add much higher quality glass to whatever lineup of stuff that I was wanting to use for content creation, and then probably pick up a ZV-E1. Since I'm looking at spending maybe that $2,200 at some point again anyway, I would get something else on top of that, or another camera that maybe is a little bit more, but maybe you find it used and you save a little bit of money. But I think personally, A6700 is much bigger bang for the buck. A lot of people are going to say like resolution and photos. This is all video over here on this channel, so to each their own of how you may use it in that way. But when it comes down to video, I take the A6700 any day over the A7C Mark II. I just don't think it had enough wow factor to convince me to drop that much more money onto it, simply because it's full frame. But if you love your A7 IV or love the idea of an A7 IV, you just would want that more compact, it's an easy choice to go that route. But for me, I would probably still go with the A6700. Now, knowing that all of these cameras are out now, and you have the A6700, the ZVE1, the A7C Mark II, which one of these cameras would it make more sense to get? And if you compare the ZVE1 to the A7C Mark II, it's some interesting differences there too. So if you're kind of looking at all three of these, that may be a video worth checking out coming up on the screen. But as I love to end all of my videos, create, post, repeat, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Which of these cameras would you choose between the two? And I'll see y'all over on the next video, again, coming up on the screen. Don't you get next to my coffee. Freaking that. Oh, where did they come? It's always my coffee. About ready to punch the daggone camera screen. All right, I'm gonna send you to the father in about 2.32 seconds.